Okay. Can you either of you explain to me how many Western scholars of the Bible believe that the Old Testament can be traced back to Moses versus how many believe that the Quran can be traced to the life of the Prophet Muhammad?
Yeah, well, I have one better to you than Western scholars. I have your prophet. So I keep appealing to your prophet. So if Western scholars are right, then join me in saying Muhammad is an antichrist, a false prophet. I appeal to your prophet, you appeal to Western scholars. And it depends on which Western scholars you want to appeal to, because not all Western scholars believe the same thing and hold the same presuppositions. But I can also appeal to Western scholars that don't think that your Quran, as you have it, is even from Uthman. It's actually from Abdul Malik from the 8th century. But I did you better. I went to Muhammad. Why do you have a problem with Muhammad? Why are you ashamed of Muhammad? He's your prophet, right? Your prophet tells me that the scriptures that Jesus had, that Torah is the uncorrupt revelation of God, perfectly preserved, and Jesus confirmed it. And since you believe the Torah was given to Moses, your prophet did it for me. So if you give me 99% of what's in scholarship, then either your prophet is wrong, and admit he is, and I agree is, but for other reasons, right? Or the scholars are wrong. You can't have your cake and eat it too. Why do you keep doing jihad against your prophet? Fi sabilillah. You should be agreeing with him. Now, according to our friend here, this is his belief. Allah has a foot. He has a shin. He even has loins. And he has at least 2 eyes, if not more, and 2 right hands. Now, for the life of me, if Allah is the creator of the heavens and the earth, how does he exist as an embodied being without him dwelling in space? Because if he's atemporal and he's timeless, that means his God supposedly exists when there was no time, space, and place.
That contradiction, God having a hand, guess what? That's a problem for the Trinity as well, because the New Testament in Acts 7:55 describes Jesus as standing at the right hand of the Father. So what is the right hand of the Father? Is that in space? Does the Father have a body? Can you explain that?
Unlike you, according to the scriptures, unlike your position as a Salafi anthropomorphist, the Bible says God is spirit. So I'm going to challenge you to show me in your Quran and Sunnah where it says your Allah is spirit. And in the context of John 4:24, God is spirit, meaning that he is bodiless, incorporeal, because he's the creator of heavens and earth. But that God can appear visibly. God the Father appears visibly in heaven. That's Daniel 7:9. Verses 10, chapter 7, verse 9 to 10, Revelation chapter 4. So when it says that Jesus in his glorified physical body enters this heavenly realm where angels dwell, heaven itself is created and God can manifest in heaven, and Jesus physically being seen by the inhabitants of heaven, sitting at the right hand of the Father who appears visibly. But you don't believe that about the body parts of your God. You believe your God has 2 right hands. Where's the left one? I'm still waiting for the answer. He has loins. He has a shin, and he's going to put his foot over hell. And then you have the womb yanking on his loins. That's inside Bukhari.
Look at what Luke 19:40 says. I tell you, he replied, if they keep quiet, the stones will cry out. Stones will cry out according to the New Testament. Do the stones have minds? Isaiah 55:12, you will go out in joy and be led forth in peace. The mountains and the hills will burst into song before you, and all the trees of the field will clap their hands. Does that mean that the hills and the trees have minds? Sam, explain that. Or how about Psalm 98:8? Let the rivers clap their hands. Let the mountains sing together for joy. Does that mean that the rivers have hands and they're clapping for joy? Do they have minds? Sam, please explain all of those verses.
Guys, you see how desperate Daniel is? And he's talking about, we're evading the topic. Read Luke 19:38 to 40. Let me show you the context as my time is fleeting. There, Jesus is being praised by children. And the scholars are saying, rebuke them. He goes, well, if they were silent, even the stones will cry out. Anyone with any common sense, but I understand it's hard for them to read a text in its literary context. He's using hyperbole, that even if they don't praise me, creation will praise me. That's exactly the context of the Psalms. The psalmist, which is poetic literature, is personifying creation to show that all creation glorifies God, because creation is a testimony to the greatness and existence of God. Nice try with that false analogy, but
the Bible says in Leviticus chapter 20 to execute a woman who engages in adultery. Many Christians will say, oh, this is the old covenant. It's no longer applicable. Fine, that may be true, but it doesn't change the fact that God commanded executing adulterers at one point in history. And God, according to the Trinity, is also Jesus. So Jesus commanded the Israelites to kill adulterers. Does that sound very peaceful? Jesus is also pro-genocide. In Deuteronomy 20, Jesus commands Moses to attack the Canaanites and other peoples and, quote, leave nothing alive that breathes. In Deuteronomy chapter 2, Moses requested safe passage for the wandering Hebrew people from Sihon, king of Heshbon, but the king refused. Jesus then commands his followers to conquer and possess Sihon's lands. As Moses says, quote, the Lord our God, meaning Jesus, delivered him before us, and we smote him and his sons and all his people, and we took all his cities at that time and utterly destroyed the men and the women and the little ones of every city. We left none to remain.
I want to thank Daniel for proving that Jesus is his God, Allah. Why? Because according to the Quran, in chapter 5, verse 20 to 26, it was his Allah that ordered Moses and the Israelites to enter Canaan and wipe it out. Chapter 5, verse 20, 26. And again, I want to thank Daniel for proving that Jesus is Allah, his God, because in Sahih Bukhari, volume 4, number 353, ask me to read it because I don't want to eat up my time. There, in an authentic narration, his prophet refers to a prophet who went in an expedition jihad, and the sun stood still, and his prophet narrates the injunctions of Deuteronomy chapter 20. And also alludes to Joshua chapter 7 and 10. So that means Jesus is Allah, his God, Muhammad's judge, because according to your prophet, your God sanctioned these. So that means you're better than your God. The woman, his prophet, is condemned to hell because at the age of 54, he slept with a 9-year-old minor and sanctioned pedophilia, because there is no limit or age for marriage, to an old man. And Muhammad was 54 years old. You don't get any older than that. He was old enough to be her great-granddaddy. Ironically, you mentioned it. Let me show you where it says.
I'm just showing a picture of Mario here because he's a famous plumber and he's with his princess. So I think that has significance. Plumber is for Sam.
As far as those accusations, let's assume those accusations are true. All you're proving is that I'm a sinner, unfaithful to the teachings of Christ. But I was acting like Muhammad, because Muhammad did a lot of plumbing with a lot of women other than his own wives, because when he sanctioned the rape of married women, raping them and selling them off as chattel, that's condemned by the God of Moses in Deuteronomy 21, 10 to 14. So Lord, forgive me for acting like Muhammad, because I know acting like Muhammad leads me to hell, so may have mercy. Now let's come back to the issue.
Wow. Yeah, so my question is that we didn't just talk about child marriage. We talked about punishment for blasphemy, punishment for adultery, execution, punishment for homosexuality. Do you condemn all of these things in the Old Testament? I think that it's not applicable today. Fine. But Jesus is still commanding that for that time, for a previous time. So do you think that is morally just?
Let me give you a thorough answer. Listen, let's see if you're going to get it. If you read these laws in the context from which you're quoting, unlike your prophet, who didn't give any sign that his God was backing him up, why don't you read these statements in context? In the context of those passages, God appears to the nation visibly in a pillar of cloud by day and a pillar of fire by night. Not only in front of the Israelites, but he also appears to the Egyptians, leaving them with no excuse to defy his commands. In other words, unlike your Ilah, the God of the Bible proved his existence. The God of the Bible set up a theocracy on earth. The God of the Bible gave them ample proof not to doubt his existence, so that when they see him in the pillar of cloud, pillar of fire by night, hear his voice audibly and see the signs, so that even the Egyptians saw the pillar of cloud, Exodus 14, 19 to 31, as well as Joshua 2, 8 to 11. He gave the nations no excuse for defying him. So when God shows up, then he has every right to tell you how to live. And if you defy him, he has every right to take away your life, because he's the God over death and life. This is unlike your prophet, who could not provide any proof that God was speaking through him, who could not provide that his God even exists. All he did was he borrowed the collateral of the Jews and Christians, claimed to be a prophet like the prophets found in the Jewish Christian tradition. But when he's challenged to prove that God sent him, failed miserably. So you're comparing apples and pineapples. So if God shows up and I see and I know that he exists, he has every right to tell me what to do and every right to inflict any punishment he deems fit, unlike your Ilah, who doesn't exist.